Absolutely.
Ross, are you there, baby bum cakes?
Justin?
Hello, you lovely man. Good to speak to you, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, very good.
Now, Ross, just to be clear, usually at this time on a Tuesday, we have the sensational Mark Goldbridge, who is our regular Manchester United correspondent. He can't be with us tonight because he forgot. Just to be clear, Mark Goldbridge cannot be with us from the United stand this evening because he forgot. Okay, but Ross, you're in his place. Let's have a rundown of the weekend's game from your point of view.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was actually on the United stand just before the game on one of the shows and for a team lineup reaction. And, you know, it was a real struggle before the game. You know, when the lineup come out, we tried our absolute best to be positive with what we saw because it was a shocking team lineup. But you know, we were quite reserved because at the end of the day, we didn't want to be too sort of negative about it because the result mattered at the end of the day. And the team that he put out there got a result. And I think he put that team out for that reason. You know, he's been publicly slating a lot of players in the press recently, which, you know, I think is quite interesting. But I kind of back it myself, to be honest, because I think there's a culture in English football at the minute where there is this injury culture and players seem to always want to take the injury high road rather than actually play through an injury. And I think he's done that on purpose to try and shock them into, you know, actually committing to the team a bit. And I totally back him. I mean, there's been a lot of mixed reception about the way that he sort of treated the players and saying that he shouldn't do it publicly. But I think nowadays, because of the Twitter environment, everything's so public, I think the fans have a right to know. And I think, you know, we'd rather know why he's dropping these players and tell us rather than it all being kept a secret.
It's interesting, Ross, we've got my fellow Punjabi Rams on the lime green sofa tonight, Derby County fans, Anish and Pav. And of course, Steve McLaren is doing a fantastic job at Derby County, seems to be turning things around. I don't know what your personal thoughts are on McLaren, formerly of Manchester United, of course, but Mourinho seems to be a manager who likes to publicly call out his players, whereas McLaren, we've been talking about it earlier on, is a manager who likes to give them a cuddle. What do you think of the difference in managerial styles there? Which one do you think works best long term? Giving them a cuddle or calling them out?
Yeah, my personal opinion is I think that neither style, you know, works as a long-term thing. I think you need to do the right things with the right players. And I think there's certain players that do need a cuddle and you have to kind of give them, you know, that treatment. And I think there's other players that actually will respond to a bit of, you know, public, you know, discrimination. I kind of feel that Luke Shaw's one of them because kind of every manager Manchester United have tend to publicly slate Luke Shaw. And I think there's a reason behind it. They must see that he can handle that. And there is the other players that, you know, tend to not get publicly slated so much. And I'm a massive fan of Steve McLaren. I think that, you know, he obviously went really bad for him at England, but since then I think he's done really well in his career. I think he got a bit of a tough ride at Newcastle because it was a poor team anyway, under a poor ownership. So, you know, I'm pleased with Steve McLaren. I think he's a great coach. And I don't think there's a person in football that says he's not a great coach.
Ross, let me just bring the boys on the sofa in on that one. What do you think, Pav and Anish, when you see Jose Mourinho publicly slating his players?
I think Mourinho's losing it, personally. I think he's not sure what to do with his squad of players. I mean, Smalling was his captain, has been captain. So the fact that he's calling him out, there must be something else going behind the scenes. Luke Shaw, I mean, he's had a bit of a long-term injury. I don't know how much he's been playing this season. Maybe he's just thought, actually, I've got a bit of a niggle. So I think Mourinho coming out, and he's said it in his pre-match interviews, post-match, then all of his like press and everything. So I think he's in danger of losing the squad like he did at Chelsea.
He's in danger of losing the squad like he did at Chelsea. What are your thoughts on that, Ross?
I totally disagree. I think he's publicly slating the players that are not playing for him. The players that are playing for him played on Sunday, and if I was a manager of a club and I had a player coming to me sort of 24 hours before a game saying, oh, you know, I don't really feel up to it, you know, my body's hurting a bit, you'd be furious with them. And then the prime example is Paul Pogba, who got injured on Thursday night, 10 minutes into the game, and was barely even walking on Saturday. He definitely wasn't walking properly on Friday, and yet plays the full 90 minutes and plays one of his best games that he's played for Manchester United. And it's a classic quote from Mourinho saying that, you know, I very much doubt that in any title-winning team there hasn't been players that have played through injury. I mean, I think that the whole of Leicester's team played completely injured last year. I mean, Vardy was taking knocks all over the show. So there's definitely a lack of commitment there, and you know, it might be right, it might be wrong to do it publicly, but everything's public nowadays. And as I say, as a fan, I'd rather know. I'd rather it be public, so I know personally.
But could that instill fear in the rest of the squad? So I don't know, say Pogba's got a bit of an injury, or Ibrahimovic, and they're thinking, oh no, I don't want Mourinho digging me out in the press. And they go on play and they've got a little bit of a tight hamstring or something, and they're out for 6 or 8 weeks. Is that what you want?
It's not, but there's a difference between having an actual injury and just having a niggle. We all know what the difference between, you know, a pulling hamstring, which you would say hang on, or you've just got, you know, a bit of a tight muscle here and there. You're feeling a bit off the pace. I disagree with it, and you know, I think a lot of players, and it's in the English culture where they won't play if they feel a niggle, and I think it's wrong. And we've seen so many good, you know, brilliant English players like Jack Wilshere, just to name one of many, that their whole career seems to be wasted because they've always got a niggling injury, and it doesn't happen to any other country around the world.
So, Ross, are you suggesting then that the likes of Luke Shaw, they don't really have a proper injury, they've just got a niggle?
I think it's a mental thing. Yeah, I really do. I think it's you know, I know Luke Shaw's a bit of a different case because he has had a really serious injury, but you know, let's not forget this injury that he so-called picked up has nothing to do with his leg injury. It's a muscular injury, completely separate. You know, it might not have even been doing it publicly just for them too, but it's just a warning for the squad. It's you pull your weight or you're out, and the whole team. I don't think there's a single player that hasn't been pulling their weight apart from 2 or 3.
Okay, Anish wants to come in. Anish?
Go on.
I think I was going to make a point to say that Mourinho's not stupid. Right? I think he knows that that team can handle public criticism.
Yeah, I totally agree.
When he was at Chelsea, I guess under his first spell, he would defend those players a lot. He would defend them from the press, and he would take full blame for anything. I think if he feels comfortable that this group of players can take public criticism, then he's doing it for that reason. If he knew that these players might be a bit fragile with this criticism, he wouldn't do it.
But Pav, isn't the danger though, if Mourinho is publicly calling out the likes of Luke Shaw and Smalling, if there's a really good sense of camaraderie in that dressing room, then Mourinho runs the risk of losing the other players, surely.
And surely, yeah, and Smalling's a leader as well, because I mean, mentioned before, he's been captain. And also, how do the fans react? So say, I don't know, whoever your next game is against, Smalling's picked, Luke Shaw's picked, are the fans going to be on their back, giving them grief?
Ross, it's all about the camaraderie. Surely it's all about the camaraderie. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, well, United fans will back players regardless of what's gone on. I mean, we still back Rooney, and look what he done over the last 5 years trying to leave the club. So I don't think there will ever be an issue with the fans, but the fans would rather know, and I keep saying that. You know, we've been so frustrated with the Mkhitaryan dropping because we never knew what was going on, and it's just nice to know. You know, we all sort of wondered why Shaw was dropped, and it just come out in the press. He told us, and as a fan, like, I keep saying it, I'd rather know than not know. And I agree. I think he's, you know, publicly calling out players that, yeah, potentially, you know, if you've got a captain and as a manager you are worrying that he's not pulling his weight, I think that you have a right to slate him because he's a captain. He's supposed to lead that team.
Ross, very briefly, thank you so much. Fantastic talking to you. The rumour today is that Luke Shaw has been training on his own. Would you be surprised if he doesn't look for a new club?
Yeah, I've heard that he is training on his own, but it's because everyone else has gone on international duty, and because he's injured, he's just training at the club as any other injured player would do. So I don't think there's anything in that. He's just training on his own because he's not gone on international duty. OK,
Arsenal are visiting you on November the 19th. They hate Old Trafford. Are you going to beat them, or can they do you this time?
Do you know what? I'm going to be negative because I've had a bit of a jinx on Manchester United recently. If I go positive, we tend to lose. If I go negative, we win. So I'm going to say it's going to be a tough game. And without Zlatan, because he's obviously suspended, it's going to be a real fight to get a result. But I did hear today that Sanchez might be out for that game as well. So that'll help us. OK, we'll talk more about that later. Let's hear it for Ross, everybody. Thank you. In for Mark Goldbridge from United Stand. That was sensational.